I'm going to give you really just a kind of pragmatic view of the nitty-gritty of what Ocado does with its large amounts of data. The first of these areas that I'll mention briefly is just our delivery network and activity. That map you see in the background there, the black and white one, is actually not a map. That's just a GPS dot from every one of our vehicles captured over just a few days. The coloured picture on the right there shows you a single day's deliveries in central London. Just the amount of activity going on here and the stuff we can learn from it is astonishing. And just to give you a few tidbits, obviously we want to know how fast we drive, where our customer really lives, how long it takes us to park, where do we park, and how long it takes us to deliver. And just some of those things, narrowing down the accuracy of them, give tremendous efficiencies to delivery. A second area that's, again, incredible amounts of data we generate is in our central operation, the actual picking of the customer's orders. And here the data is on how fast do the individual pickers pick, how fast do they walk. If we pull together all of this data of every single process and person that has touched or handled a product through to the customer eventually receiving it, can we look at when products have been damaged and trace that back statistically to the kinds of causes of it? And it turns out that you can do that surprisingly well. There's all sorts of incredible detailed information we can pull from this. And so that's this kind of second major area where, while I acknowledge that most operations don't quite have a central warehouse as complicated as this one, I think there's still a hell of a lot to be learned from it. And then tying some of this data also back to the website in terms of availability, supplier deliveries to ourselves on time, and so on. The third area, which is probably one that you're all a bit more familiar with, or at least some of you, it's obviously our website and other points of customer communication and interaction. So our view here is that there are many things that we need to measure, and customer conversion is really not the focal point there. There's customer acquisition, there's customer retention, there's loyalty and shopping frequency, there's basket size. Obviously, Ocado is slightly unusual in that we're looking for people to purchase typically around 50 or so items, so it's not a one-item purchase as many e-commerce operators. And all of these things need to come together. And a big part of that in the last year or two, of course, is mobile apps. And that's just added another dimension and complication to everyone's activity in this area. And obviously, it's fantastic, but it complicates the picture even more. Some of these things, learning from the data here can in some cases be very simple and reactionary and straightforward. And so, for example, those adverts you see in the middle there, we can fairly quickly learn how receptive customers are to those adverts. And that's something that's very straightforward. Other things, up the top there, you'll see the instant shop. That's something which actually requires a tremendous amount of processing at the back end, where we analyze a single customer's shopping history in great detail and are able to predict for them with quite surprising accuracy what they're going to buy next time, and therefore save them the majority of the time that they will be spending working that out. Obviously, it's not 100% accurate, but by giving the customer a chance to look at that, they can hone in on what they really want to buy far, far quicker. Search is another very important area where there you've got a combination, I think, of both sort of simple kind of reactionary learning you need to do from data and very intensive back-end processing there. And the key things there that we've begun to learn about are understanding your domain. Ocado sells around 20,000 products that are structured in very particular ways. Search in that domain is clearly very different to a search at Amazon and even more different from a search on Google. And you need to know that when customer searches for bread, that's quite a different thing from searching for a breaded bit of fish. And corned beef has nothing to do with corn. Those are the kinds of things that one needs to learn there. And also, how do you structure those results? How do you structure the different kinds of results in a way that makes sense to the customer? And it's not just all about search, it's about filtering and browsing. Recommendations, collaborative filtering, that's another big area. I'm not really going to say anything more about that right now, but clearly that's important. I'll cover two further quick areas now. So one of the things that we realized that's very difficult for a new customer at Ocado is to get them from registration to making that first shop, precisely because they've got to spend the time to fill up a basket with 40 or 50 or 60 items. And if they're unfamiliar with the site, unfamiliar with the product range, that can be a pain in the ass, frankly. So we hit upon an approach that we believe will help with this, and this is something that we've been trialing recently. And here the issue is that we can't personalize the web shop for a new customer because we know nothing about them. So actually what we do here is we ask them some questions about their family, pets, babies, so on, some dietary questions. We ask them a handful of things about what typical kinds of products do they buy, and then all of that data is correlated back against the 100,000 or 200,000 of our most frequently shopping customers to look at what customers like that are similar to this new customer, what they would buy, and then we generate for them this personalized shop on the right-hand side, which contains just a kind of filtered view of our catalog, just the things we think they're most likely to buy, and our belief is that this sort of thing will let that customer get through the first shop much more quickly and easily. A second area that's sort of very interesting, and again where Ocado has some similarities and differences to other e-commerce retailers, is in the checkout process. Because customer, again, is buying a basket of items, the checkout process is something where, much as in a normal supermarket, there's a lot of opportunity for impulse buying. And in fact, we have a variety of different algorithms running behind the scenes that offer the customer a variety of products during this process. Some of them are very straightforward. Did you forget? Is just items that you normally buy that are not in your basket right now, and it's astonishing the number of products that are bought from that section. Some of the others are obviously a bit more speculative. Try something new is stuff that's pure kind of recommendation-based things. And here there's, again, a very strong element of you need to learn kind of dynamically, you need to learn quickly and on the fly. Something that's selling well one day and try something new might sell very differently the next day if the weather's different. But again, you need to do a lot of back-end processing to understand how to segment your customers into different buying patterns. So there's an enormous amount of detailed computation you need to do at the back, but then combine it with some quite simple things on the front. The other thing that's interesting about checkout is that one of the things we've recently been discovering is that, at least for us, you don't necessarily want to force people through this process too fast. In a normal, for example, Amazon's checkout process is extremely focused. There's no links on the page to speak of. You can't escape it without actually manually editing the URL. With us, we've found that actually when customers exit this, that doesn't mean we've lost them necessarily. It means that they've actually been prompted by something here to go into the website and find something else that isn't shown, but they actually do want. And so there's often this kind of circular process where they go out and back and out and back. And those kinds of things we are understanding by really tracking every single view, every item shown, every single trace of the customer through the site. And it's really following those traces that Andreas mentioned that we've already learned a great deal, but there's tons more that we haven't yet done. And I'll wrap up with a few lessons here that I don't think there's any need for me really to go through them, but those are some of the sort of key messages that I think about where we're at today.